All right, Mayank, we'll come back to you once again. We're getting in live visuals there from Australia. In fact, Prime Minister is there on a two-day visit, as you can see on the screen. He's there in a cricket ground there in Australia. The connection between India and Australia when it comes to cricket is very deep, and those are the live visuals coming in from Australia of the Prime Minister there at a cricket stadium and meeting with the prominent personalities there as well. And later today, we are learning that Prime Minister Modi is all set to visit New Zealand as he wraps up the Australia tour. Around 9:30 is what we're learning when he will be heading towards New Zealand, and that will be his first visit to the country since taking office. Trade and defense are expected to dominate the agenda. But at this point in time, you can see the visuals on your screen of the Prime Minister at a cricket stadium there in Australia just before his visit to New Zealand. Akansha Swaroop is joining us live on the broadcast with more details. Akansha, live visuals coming in from Australia of Prime Minister visiting a cricket stadium there. As far as the connection between India and Australia when it comes to cricket is concerned, that goes very deep. Give us more details.
Oh, absolutely. Cricket diplomacy has been, at the center of the India-Australia bilateral relationship as well. And as we all know, whenever it comes to sports or culture, even say cinema, these are all soft aspects of diplomacy between countries, and that's exactly what we've seen play out during Prime Minister's second leg of tour, as much as it was during his first leg of tour in Indonesia when he visited the Prambanan temple. And this time around, while addressing the diaspora community, also Prime Minister spoke about the commonalities, and of course he lauded the cricket community in Australia. He's always appreciated that no matter what the size of the country is, it is their cricketers who have always brought laurels to Australia. And so this comes, remember, after a very successful visit for Prime Minister Modi, where India-Australia have sealed landmark pacts, particularly the one on nuclear energy and defense. But to come back to the Prime Ministerial visit right now at the cricketing ground, where we are seeing he's being accompanied by the cricket community there. As we all know, Australia's cricket community is world famous, and Prime Minister Modi also informed the Melbourne crowd about how India aspires to, in fact, achieve more, even when it comes to, say, something like cricket. And Indian cricketers also need to, in fact, learn a lot more when it comes to the sport, which actually unites, the love for cricket unites both the countries. And we'll have to see if Prime Minister has any warm words to say for the cricketers there. But this is one visit that was really being looked forward to. He's also invited the Australian businesses to capitalize on India's unmatched growth opportunities. It's been a visit, Akanksha, which actually goes on to encompass all bilateral dimensions of the India-Australia relationship, whether it is trade, whether it is defense, whether it is energy, and now, say, even the diaspora community. He's delivered a very high, electrifying address to the diaspora community yesterday. Remember, he was actually, very warmly welcomed by the entire community, including the Australian Governor-General, who had come down especially to meet Prime Minister Modi in Australia, as he was accompanied by Prime Minister Albanese. And now what we are seeing right now is, in fact, him turning to cricket to illustrate the strength of India as well. He had invoked India and Australia's shared passion for cricket to highlight the rapidly expanding strategic ties between both the nations. And that is when he was, in fact, flanked by the Australian Prime Minister. He contrasted the different formats of cricket between India and Australia to map out the pace, the depth of the India-Australia bilateral engagements as well. And he's already called Melbourne the sports capital of the world. Not talking about sports, he said, would be not starting a cricket match after the toss. That's what Prime Minister Modi had to say on a very heartwarming note.
Absolutely. Cricket diplomacy is on display. In fact, yesterday, Prime Minister spoke about this. He said, and I quote, "Cricket is the diplomatic language of India-Australia relationship. That is why our meetings too resemble cricket. The agenda focused on one-day match, decisions swift like T20 games, and the partnership long and deep like the Test match." So this is what the Prime Minister had said. Akansha, do tell us about the visit of the Prime Minister to Australia. Now, it turned out to be very good there. Take us to the crucial meetings there that happened in the last 2 days, and what were the outcomes? Because from now, in just some time, he will be heading towards New Zealand.
Oh, absolutely. And remember, this brings the focus back on the bird's eye view is that Prime Minister is looking towards focusing on the Indo-Pacific when it comes to his three-nation tour, whether it is to do with Indonesia, Australia, and now the upcoming one next is going to be New Zealand. And apart from bringing focus back on the Indo-Pacific, there is, of course, focus on trade. By New Zealand becomes extremely significant because just in April this year, we signed an FTA with them. And even though the agreement is to be ratified in the New Zealand Parliament, it brings a lot to the table as far as India's own growth in the economy is concerned in terms of trade. But to come back to the question that you posed about India-Australia, well, what's been extremely historic about this particular visit for Prime Minister Modi to Australia is that we have now been able to operationalize an agreement on uranium energy, which will be exported by Australia to India. This was an agreement which had been in the offing. It had already been done, but as the MEA sources, in fact, Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri very rightly pointed out yesterday at the briefing that it takes time to operationalize agreements, and that is exactly what will be done now that India will be procuring uranium from Australia. This will be in alignment with India's nuclear energy goals of 2047, because remember, India is looking towards building over 100 gigawatts of nuclear energy for our civil use purposes. And so Australia will become a significant bilateral partner when it comes to nuclear energy. Uranium has been the big key takeaway from Prime Minister's visit to Australia this time around. He's also spoken about how the two countries are working expeditiously to firm up the Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement, which is very much in talks as this bilateral investment protection framework is currently underway. It's not being finalized yet, though there were hopes that it would be finalized when Prime Minister pays this visit. But it is still in the works, is what we are being told. And this is going to bring in more trade and investment to India and Australia.
All right, stay on with us, Akansha. I'll come back to you once again. Let's keep our focus on the live visuals coming in from Australia. Cricket diplomacy is on full display there. This may be a cricket stadium, but today's visit is all about the game. Cricket has always been a special bond between India and Australia. And the two countries, you would remember, have shared a long and memorable cricketing history, from classic test matches to broader trophy to thrilling World Cup contests as well. India and Australia have played some of the biggest matches the sport has ever seen. And that is why this visit carries a strong message. It shows how cricket continues to bring the two countries closer, not just on the field, but off it as well. So the game is doing what it has done often over the years, bringing people together and strengthening the relationship. And at this point in time, the relationship between India and Australia. Let me once again go back to Akansha Swarup on this. Akansha, Prime Minister is all set to visit New Zealand after this, the first by an Indian Prime Minister in 40 years and the first since Rajiv Gandhi's visit in 1986. And it has been seen by experts as a major moment in the ties between the two countries. Give us more details about that as well. What is expected as far as that meeting is concerned?
Oh, absolutely. And you rightly highlighted that it is historic in nature. Why is it historic? Of course, as you also mentioned, that this is the first Indian Prime Minister's visit to New Zealand in 40 years. And that is what makes it extremely significant. But more importantly, we are also looking towards, say, the trade ties that both the countries share. As I mentioned earlier, the FTA has been signed just this year, very much in April. And even though it's awaiting ratification, the fact of the matter remains that there's a lot that India is standing to gain out of this FTA. And Prime Minister will also be building towards that bilateral relationship. But it's also first Prime Minister's visit to New Zealand in the last 40 years. So you can expect a roaring welcome for him, also by the Indian community, since he's a diaspora favorite. And it comes at a significant time, Akanksha, following the recent signing of the FTA. That makes it even more significant. The people-to-people ties are very interesting because New Zealand, remember, is home to around over 300,000 Indian people, and they feel a strong connection for India as much as these Australians who we saw yesterday gather for Prime Minister's welcome at the diaspora event as well. So it will afford an opportunity to celebrate the contribution. At the same time, the sore point happens to be the Khalistan issue, not just in Australia, but also in New Zealand. In fact, the Khalistanis had been plastering posters across Auckland to protest Prime Minister's visit. In fact, there have been death threats also that have been issued against Prime Minister by these Khalistani supporters, whether it was to do with the event in Australia or, say, even his visit to New Zealand. So we'll have to see how India takes up, say, the security issue. As far as the Khalistani menace is concerned, will that feature in the talks or not? But in our engagements with the High Commissioners, whether in Australia or in New Zealand, we've been told that this issue will be raised at the highest levels, and perhaps this is not going to become a hurdle or a hiccup between both the countries. Our bilateral trade has been looking extremely forward. New Zealand spends roughly close to 1.5% of its total GDP on its R&D and has achieved excellence in various sectors, whether it is, say, dairy, farming, high-performance sports. Even their cricket team has been standing out, and they are trying to partner with India to learn how from their best practices and innovations to strengthen India's farming sector as well. So let's see what all arrives now that the FTA has already provided a provision of $20 billion worth of investment in India over the next 15 years. It will serve as a huge driving force for stronger economic partnership.
All right, so all eyes will be on that crucial visit of the Prime Minister to New Zealand. Thank you so much, Akanksha Swaroop, for getting us all those details and putting that into perspective, because the focus will be on the trade push and the FTA follow-up as well.